Prosecutors say they conspired to use force to stop Congress from certifying President Biden's electoral win in the 2020 election. They already pleaded not guilty to other charges. And it is primary day for 7 states across the country. Voters will have a say in a total of 78 congressional districts and could help determine who controls the U.S. House in November. In Los Angeles, voters will choose a new mayor. And in Iowa, Democrats will nominate a candidate to take on longtime Republican Senator Chuck Grassley in November. And candidates for governor will also be chosen in California, Iowa, New Mexico, and South Dakota. A major blow to the Biden administration. Mexico's president says he will not attend this week's summit of the Americas in Los Angeles. The announcement from Andrés Manuel López Obrador comes after clashing over which countries were invited to attend. The White House excluded Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela over concerns about human rights and a lack of democracy in those nations. Mexico's president said, quote, "There cannot be a summit if all countries are not invited." Well, it's a good day to turn on your AC for sure as record high temps hit parts of the South. Hopefully you have AC. Let's bring in meteorologist Stephanie Abrams from our partners at the Weather Channel. Steph, what spots are going to be feeling the heat the most?
Anne-Marie, Texas is really going to be feeling the heat today, but then it's actually going to expand as we head through the week. So anywhere from Louisiana to Texas to New Mexico and to California, we could see record high temperatures. Look at the advisories posted. We have excessive heat warnings and also heat advisories. Within these areas, we're talking temperatures in the 103, 105, even up to potentially 108 degrees. But you also have a lot of humidity, so that's going to make it feel even hotter than that. It could feel like it's 115, 116, 117. Let's look at the numbers. Midland, Texas, our record's 106. We're going for a 105 today, very close to that record. And by the way, this 106 was set back in 1964. That's when the Beatles' I Want to Hold Your Hand was very popular. And so it really hasn't been this hot since then, at least record-setting heat. And you'll see 107 into San Angelo and San Antonio will be close to that record of 103. Now, we have a big ridge in the south. That's what's giving us all of that warmth. Just to the north of that is where our jet stream is located, and that's where we'll have the potential for storms. All hazards, we're talking wind and large hail, are our main concern. And it really starts to fire up as we head later in the day. Look at this, 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock. You'll see the storms, and they continue actually as we head into tomorrow morning. Now, you can catch all-day coverage of the Weather Channel television network on your cable provider, YouTube TV, as well as Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and your other favorite streaming devices. And Anne-Marie, summer is officially 2 weeks away. On 2 Tuesdays, which would be June 21st, is when it's officially summer.
Feels like it already started. Someone ought to tell Mother Nature. Steph, thank you very much. Well, you can also get the latest on the weather in your area on the CBS News app. Our app gives you access to all of our CBS News national and local streams for free anytime, anywhere. Meantime, UK Prime Minister, talking about feeling the heat, Boris Johnson narrowly survived a critical no confidence vote in Parliament that will allow him to stay in office.
And therefore, I can announce that the Parliamentary Party does have confidence.
Johnson faced a challenge from his own Conservative Party stemming from the so-called Partygate scandal. He was fined for holding illegal drinking parties with his staff during Britain's COVID lockdowns. Johnson received the backing of a majority of Conservative lawmakers in yesterday's vote, but nearly 150 members of his own party went against him.
As a government, we can move on and focus on the stuff that I think really matters to people. And what we need to do now is come together as a government, as a party, and that is exactly what we can now do.
Johnson received less support than his predecessor, Theresa May, did in a similar vote in 2018, and she was forced to resign 6 months later. In Ukraine now, the bodies of Ukrainian fighters killed in a steel plant are being returned to their homeland. And this comes as Russia intensifies its offensive in the eastern Donbass region. Chris Livesay reports.
The capital, Kyiv, once again in the crosshairs. Russia says it attacked tanks donated by Ukrainian allies. But local resident Leonid says there's nothing here but rail cars. A smoldering reminder that Russia can strike whenever and wherever it wants by air, even if only to terrify Ukrainians far from the front lines, says Captain Natalia Hymeniuk. Sounds like terrorism.
It sounds like terrorism because it is terrorism, she says.
Russia now occupies 20% of Ukrainian territory, says Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who visited the embattled Donbas region at extreme risk to his own life. In this deadly struggle of tug of war, Ukraine has recaptured territory in Severodonetsk and is intent on pushing Russian troops back to their border with the help of advanced long-range missile systems en route from the United States. Once they get here, Vladimir Putin is now vowing Russia will strike new targets in retaliation. For now, Russia is blockading Ukraine's ports, where more than 20 million tons of grain destined for the developing world risk rotting on the docks. As fears mount of a worsening global food crisis, France is the latest country to urge finding a so-called off-ramp for Vladimir Putin's disastrous war, one that would avoid humiliating the Russian president.
What do you say to that?
It's impossible for Putin to humiliate himself or his country more than he already has, she says.
President Zelensky says that mountain of grain could more than triple by the fall. One solution he's been discussing is enlisting the help of a third country to help ship it out of the Black Sea, full of mines and Russian warships. Chris Livesay, CBS News, Odessa, Ukraine.
The U.S. military is investigating whether an American service member planned an attack that injured U.S. troops on purpose. No charges have been filed yet, but officials say that the service member has been identified as a possible suspect in the April blasts at a base in eastern Syria. Officials say that the suspect is back in the U.S., but their name has not been released. The U.S. has several hundred troops stationed in Syria to counter ISIS. And the leader of the Proud Boys and other members of the far-right group are now facing charges linked to the January 6th attack. Additional charges ahead. Senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge is going to be joining us to explain the allegations against them. And later, an iPhone overhaul. We're going to tell you about the changes coming to your phone, including the ability to edit a text message that you've already sent. We'll be right back.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
Incredibly big!
The metaverse, the virtual world that's become a cryptocurrency casino.
It's like buying property on Mars.
Do they get an actual picture of this? No, it's a digital copy. Why would they pay for that?
Making millionaires almost overnight.
We made more than $1 million in crypto last year. I have no idea how much money I have made over the past year. That's like, wow!
Big rewards.
There's gold in them, there are hills, as they say.
Bigger risks.
The market's down, but it's going to bounce back. It's crypto.
Is it a gold rush or fool's gold?
It's our metaverse, our story. Peace out, y'all.
An original documentary from CBS Reports. Stream now.
I'm Nora O'Donnell in our nation's capital. We're here at the White House with the President of the United States.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We've never done an interview like this before.
That's correct.
Tonight, a congressional investigation sparked by reporting from CBS News. What's your message to consumers? They need help now. Tell him I feel it.
The CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell from Washington, D.C. on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
We will witness yet another moment in history.
This week on 60 Minutes,
That's incredible.
The 60 Minutes.
60 minutes, 60 minutes.
Are you ready for some tough questions?
Let me ask you this.
you know how this sounds.
What's your response to that?
60 Minutes Sundays on CBS.
The threat of severe weather and dangerous tornadoes is expected to last.
Let's get the forecast from our partners at the Weather Channel.
Here we are in our virtual view.
Now 6 feet of water, imagine that. Cars that can act like battering rams.
These hyper-realistic simulations show you what the weather will look and feel like before it happens.
This is our virtual view, what it actually looks like.
Those are some of the best graphics I've seen.
Spare no expense, Gail.
We experience the weather in a whole new way.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy. And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun. But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking.
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
Innovative and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
people from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
We have an inspiring story that started with a strange act of kindness.
We found it.
You're kidding me! We share stories that lift you up and brighten your day.
The Uplift. Stream on the free CBS News app.
Well, the time now is 4:17 in San Francisco. That's what you're looking at. That's Hyde Street Pier in Fisherman's Wharf. You know, gas prices in parts of California are nearing $10 a gallon. Yeah, I didn't make a mistake. That's what it is. Voters in the Golden State are also casting ballots in elections today. We're going to have more on that later. In the meantime, it is 7:17 here in New York City. CBS News Mornings is back with a look at some of the stories that you may have missed while you were offline. An 11-year-old girl who survived the Uvalde school shooting will testify before lawmakers tomorrow. Mia Cirio covered herself in her friend's blood in order to appear dead during the shooting. The parents of a student who was killed will also testify. And 2 men are in custody after the mass shooting in Philadelphia over the weekend. 3 people were killed and 11 others hurt in that shooting. Both men face multiple assault charges, and one is also charged with attempted murder. The U.S. and South Korea flew 20 fighter jets over waters off South Korea's western coast today. North Korea has ramped up its pace of missile tests in the recent months. Officials in Seoul and Washington say Pyongyang is getting ready to conduct a nuclear test explosion, which hasn't been done since 2017. Well, members of the far-right group, the Proud Boys, are now facing new charges linked to the January 6th attack. The group's leader, Enrique Tarrio, is one of the people charged. CBS News senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge is outside the Justice Department with more on these new charges. Catherine, good morning.
Good morning, Anne-Marie. This is a major move by the Justice Department. In the same week, the January 6th committee will begin to make its case, alleging the attack was part of a broad and well-organized conspiracy. Late yesterday, the Justice Department announced the leader of the far-right Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio, and 4 associates have been charged with seditious conspiracy for their alleged role in the attack on the Capitol. Dominic Pizzola, who is allegedly seen breaking a Capitol window with a police shield, is among those named in the new indictment. This is only the second time a group tied to January 6th faces the rare and very serious charge of conspiring to block the execution of U.S. law or overthrow the U.S. government. Members of the Oath Keepers militia group were charged earlier this year. While Tarrio was not on the Capitol grounds that day, the new indictment alleges that at the end of 2020, he and his co-defendants conspired to prevent, hinder, and delay the certification of the Electoral College vote. And on January 6th, directed, mobilized, and led members of the crowd into the Capitol complex. All of the defendants have pleaded not guilty to earlier charges and remain detained. More than 800 individuals have been arrested in nearly all 50 states for alleged crimes connected to the breach, Anne-Marie.
All right, Catherine, thank you very much. Of course, we're going to have coverage of those public January 6th committee hearings when they kick off. That's going to happen Thursday night, prime time, 8 p.m. Eastern. So still to come, fast food goes high tech. We're going to show you a Taco Bell that can get your order to you faster than ever before. And coming up later on Red and Blue, we're going to have the latest developments on the key primary races underway in several states today. Senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe will join us from Los Angeles, where 2 very different Democrats are fighting to lead the city. You can stream that conversation in our 6 p.m. Eastern hour. We will be right back.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
It's gonna be big!
The metaverse, the virtual world that's become a cryptocurrency casino.
It's like buying property on Mars.
Do they get an actual picture of this? No, it's a digital copy. Why would they pay for that?
Making millionaires almost overnight.
We made more than $1 million in crypto last year. I have no idea how much money I have made over the past year. That's like, wow!
Big rewards.
There's gold in them, their hills, as they say.
Bigger risks.
The market's down, but it's going to bounce back. It's crypto.
Is it a gold rush or fool's gold?
It's our metaverse, our story, Peace out, y'all.
An original documentary from CBS Reports. Stream now.
I'm Nora O'Donnell in our nation's capital. We're here at the White House with the President of the United States.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We've never done an interview like this before.
That's correct.
Tonight, a congressional investigation sparked by reporting from CBS News. What's your message to consumers? They need help now. Tell him I feel it.
The CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell from Washington, D.C. on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
We will witness yet another moment in history.
This week on 60 Minutes, that's incredible.
60 minutes.
60 minutes. 60 minutes.
Are you ready for some tough questions?
Let me ask you this.
You know how this sounds.
What's your response to that?
60 Minutes Sundays on CBS.
The threat of severe weather and dangerous tornadoes is expected to last.
Let's get the forecast from our partners at the Weather Channel. Here we are in our virtual view.
Now 6 feet of water, imagine that. Cars that can act like battering rams.
These hyper-realistic simulations show you what the weather will look and feel like before it happens.
This is our virtual view, what it actually looks like.
Those are some of the best graphics I've seen.
Spare no expense, Gail.
We experience the weather in a whole new way.
Go to the ends of the earth
Right now.
We got something crazy. And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
innovative, and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
We have an inspiring story that started with a strange act of kindness.
We found it.
You're kidding me!
We share stories that lift you up and brighten your day.
The Uplift. Stream on the free CBS News app.
In Tech Watch, big changes are coming for Apple iPhone users. The company announced new features in its Worldwide Developers Conference. You will be able to edit a message after hitting the send button. You can also undo the message in case you didn't want to send it at all. So no more late night texts to your ex that you regret. You may regret your late night shopping though, because the company is also announcing a buy now, pay later plan. It will allow you to split Apple Pay purchases into 4 equal payments over 6 weeks with no interest or fees. For personal privacy, Apple is rolling out its Safety Check. The new tool lets users change who has access to the location, information, messages, and passwords, and other apps. In Money Watch, Elon Musk is raising doubts on whether he will buy Twitter. And Taco Bell is serving up a futuristic drive-thru. Matt Piper has those stories and more in today's Money Watch report.
Stocks made some modest gains on Monday to start the week. The Dow rose 16 points, the Nasdaq jumped 48, and the S&P 500 gained 12 points. A Twitter threat. Elon Musk is threatening to walk away from his $44 billion bid to buy Twitter. His lawyers say they repeatedly asked for information on bots and fake accounts since May 9th, about a month after his offer to buy the company. He says he wants to evaluate how many of the company's 229 million accounts are fake. A letter from his attorneys says if Twitter does not hand over the data, Musk will walk out of the deal. For its part, Twitter says it has and will continue to share info with them. There is a new quarter from the U.S. Mint, and it honors Cherokee leader Wilma Mankiller, the first female principal chief of the Cherokee Nation. One side depicts her in a traditional shawl looking to the future. The other still depicts George Washington, but in a portrait designed by the late sculptor Laura Garden Fraser. Mankiller is the third woman to be honored as part of the Mint's American Women Quarters program. And could this be the drive-thru of the future? This new 2-story Taco Bell in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, allows the chain to lower orders down from the kitchen to your vehicle. Of the 4 drive-thru lanes, 3 of them are dedicated to contactless pickup orders. It's called Taco Bell Defy, and it opens today. And that is your CBS Money Watch report for this Tuesday morning. I'm Matt Piper, CBS News, New York.
All right, Matt. Well, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle released a new photo showing their daughter Lilibet, who had her first birthday over the weekend. She's named for the Queen, who is her great-grandmother. Lilibet is the couple's second child. Harry and Meghan are now based in California after giving up their royal duties in 2020. And we are following several developing stories in our next half hour. Lawmakers are facing growing pressure to pass gun legislation after more mass shootings unfolded over the weekend. CBS News congressional correspondent Scott McFarland joins me after the break with all the latest details on the bipartisan talks. And we'll also speak with a former FDA official, Peter Pitts, about the baby formula crisis as Abbott Nutrition finally restarts production at its Key, Michigan plant. We're going to have the latest coming up next. Plus, rent is skyrocketing in many cities across the country, sometimes by more than $1,000. Yeah, I can't even spit it out because it's so unreal. Later this hour, we're going to speak with Rent.com senior managing editor Brian Carberry about his recent findings and if people will see any relief anytime soon. You're streaming CBS News Mornings.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
It's gonna be big!
The metaverse, the virtual world that's become a cryptocurrency casino.
It's like buying property on Mars. Do they get an actual picture of this? No, it's a digital copy. Why would they pay for that?
Making millionaires almost overnight.
We made more than $1 million in crypto last year. I have no idea how much money I have made over the past year. That's like, wow!
Big rewards.
There's gold in them there hills, as they say.
Bigger risks.
The market's down, but it's going to bounce back. It's crypto.
Is it a gold rush or fool's gold?
It's our metaverse, our story. Peace out, y'all.
An original documentary from CBS Reports. Stream now.
I'm Nora O'Donnell in our nation's capital. We're here at the White House with the President of the United States.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We've never done an interview like this before.
That's correct.
Tonight, a congressional investigation sparked by reporting from CBS News. What's your message to consumers? They need help now. Tell him I feel it.
The CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell from Washington, D.C. on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
We will witness yet another moment in history.
This week on 60 Minutes, that.
That's incredible.
The 60 minutes.
60 minutes. 60 minutes.
Are you ready for some tough questions?
Let me ask you this.
You know how this sounds.
What's your response to that?
60 Minutes Sundays on CBS.
The threat of severe weather and dangerous tornadoes is expected to last.
Let's get the forecast from our partners at the Weather Channel.
Here we are in our virtual view.
Now 6 feet of water, imagine that. Cars that can act like battering rams.
These hyper-realistic simulations show you what the weather will look and feel like before it happens.
This is our virtual view, what it actually looks like.
Those are some of the best graphics I've seen.
Spare no expense, Gail.
We experience the weather in a whole new way.
Go to the ends of the earth
Right now.
We got something crazy.
and reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun. But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
I'm open to the idea of being a human being.
innovative, and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
We have an inspiring story that started with a strange act of kindness.
We found it.
You're kidding me!
We share stories that lift you up and brighten your day.
The Uplift. Stream on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to CBS News Mornings. The time now is 7:31. Let's get you caught up on some of the news that you may have missed. In a blow to the Biden administration, Mexico's President Andrés Manuel López Obrador says he will not attend this week's Summit of the Americas after a dispute on which countries were invited to attend. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson narrowly survived a critical no-confidence vote in Parliament yesterday that will allow him to stay in office. He faced a challenge from his own Conservative Party following parties he held during the country's COVID lockdown. And a gunman allegedly shot and killed a retired Wisconsin judge who had previously put him behind bars over weapons charges. Officials say Douglas Audi shot Judge John Romer before shooting and injuring himself. As we mentioned earlier in the show, pressure is mounting for Congress to pass gun legislation as mass shootings continue across the country. So today, survivors and families of victims of recent shootings in Buffalo and Uvalde will appear before lawmakers. Meanwhile, some members of the Senate bipartisan group working on reform measures met last night to continue discussions. So here to discuss is CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane. He's with me now. It's bound to be an emotional day on Capitol Hill. But let's talk about these bipartisan senators here who have been talking gun reform. I mean, it actually seems like they're making some progress. Can you tell us where things stand on some of the issues that they are, I guess, the closest on?
Yeah, Anne-Marie, if there's going to be progress, if there's going to be new law, it's going to be through that bipartisan Senate group. To be clear, here at the Capitol this week, seemingly everybody has a focus on guns. Those hearings, there's victims, there are members talking about possible pieces of legislation, but it's that bipartisan group that has a trajectory towards that very difficult to achieve 60 votes in the Senate needed for any new law. Here's what's on the table. The Democrat who's leading this bipartisan group, Chris Murphy of Connecticut, has told me they are talking about tying loopholes in background check law. They're talking about federal support for red flag laws, helping states either enact them or improve them. Under red flag laws, courts can order guns seized from people deemed or ruled to be dangerous. That's what's likely on the table, along with some type of provision to reinforce school security, possible school hardening, and mental health provisions. The lead Republican in these talks, Anne-Marie, John Cornyn of Texas, laid down some red lines last night on the Senate floor, saying all the things that would not be included. And those things include bans on automatic rifles, bans on high-capacity magazines, potentially raising the age for purchase of some of those firearms. So we have some four corners of these discussions, but it's clear, Anne-Marie, to those involved, they need to move expeditiously. If these proposals hang out there too long, they run the risk of atrophying or simply being derailed.
And so, you know, we mentioned that the son of one of the victims from the Buffalo supermarket shooting going to appear before senators. Not the only recent victim of gun violence that's going to be talking. Can you sort of give us an idea of who's going to be speaking to senators, appealing to them?
Yeah, that happens today. The Senate Judiciary Committee has a hearing on gun violence. The son of a woman killed in the Tops shooting in Buffalo is one of the witnesses. He's been outspoken over the last 3 weeks. Tomorrow, the U.S. House Oversight Committee has a hearing also on gun violence, and they're bringing in a survivor from Robb Elementary School in Uvalde and the parents of a girl who was slain there. They'll be among the witnesses, along with a pediatrician and from Uvalde and another of the victims' families from the Tops shooting in Buffalo. The House is having hearings, the Senate is having hearings. The House will vote later this week on their own gun control provisions, including raising the age to purchase a semi-automatic rifle from 18 to 21, bans on bump stocks, on ghost guns, on those high-capacity magazines. But it's clear, Anne-Marie, those House provisions, those bolder provisions, don't have a future in the U.S. Senate that gets them to 60 votes.
And, you know, when we talk about gridlock on this issue in Washington, that is different than what we have seen in states across the country. I mean, even in states like Florida, sometimes after, you know, a mass shooting, we've seen some movement. The problem is it's patchworky, right? That's the problem. But New York is one of those states that really has wasted no time. Governor Hochul signed several gun control bills into law very recently. What measures do those what do those laws include? And, you know, are there other states that are following suit?
Those laws include raising the age to purchase semi-automatic rifles, again, from 18 years old to 21 years old. New York, in less than 4 weeks after the Buffalo shooting, has signed that into law. The governors of New Jersey and Delaware are leaning on their state legislatures to pass similar bills so that they can sign them into law. But you mentioned Florida, and I'm glad you did, because Florida, after the shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas in 2018, passed one of those red flag laws, allowing courts to order guns seized from people deemed dangerous. And not only has Florida enacted that law, our CBS News review of public records obtained under the Freedom of Information Act show Florida uses that law quite a bit. 2,200 emergency orders each year since the law went into effect. We checked other states that have red flag laws. Maryland, New Jersey, about 400 to 500 seizures each year. But one note from our review, Anne-Marie, in Illinois, which passed a red flag law recently, they have not fully implemented the law. Only 50 emergency orders in 1 year, despite the number of mass shootings in that state. State legislators called that something that needs to be fixed, and fixed quickly.
Yeah, I'd say very interesting, though, to see that those red flag laws being implemented and see how they work. Scott, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, voters in 7 states will cast their ballots in primary elections today. The races include everything from citywide politics to key congressional seats. Our senior White House and political correspondent, Ed O'Keefe, is in Los Angeles, where candidates are facing off for the city's mayoral race. This should be an interesting one, Ed.
It should be. Anne-Marie, good morning. We're outside City Hall here in the largest city in the nation's most populous state, because this city, like many communities across the country, is dealing with rising crime, concerns about homelessness because of soaring housing prices. Remember, California is a little different because it holds primaries open to candidates from both parties. And most of the attention here is on 2 very different Democrats with competing visions on how to solve big city problems.
Did you have a chance to vote yet?
The difference between the frontrunners vying to lead LA's 4 million residents is clear on the campaign trail.
Meet Rick Caruso.
I'm Karen Bass.
Polls show Congresswoman Karen Bass and Rick Caruso, a billionaire property developer, leading the pack. She's a longtime liberal lawmaker who President Biden considered as his 2020 running mate. He's a former Republican who only registered as a Democrat earlier this year. Both are running on the same issues. Crime is on the rise, including homicides. Last year saw nearly 400 people killed, and the murder rate is on pace to be higher this year.
There's some really scary things happening. People need to have safe communities.
Caruso's pledged to hire 1,500 new officers, Bass about 400. How does it get solved here in Los Angeles?
The way to get police on the beat immediately is to get them from behind the desk. It's fine to say that you're going to hire 1,500 officers. Number one, the city would go bankrupt. Number two, you cannot make cuts severe enough for 1,500 officers.
How are you going to pay, though, for 1,500 more cops?
Well, you're not hiring them all day one.
And both say more money is needed to fight homelessness.
This town is dirty. It's hurting. People feel unheard.
Caruso's been blanketing LA airwaves, outspending Bass more than 10 to 1 with about $40 million of his own dollars.
Rick Caruso can clean up LA.
He has managed to get pretty close to you pretty quickly.
That is not a difficult thing with $40 million.
It's won over many voters concerned about homelessness.
Someone's got to do something to get our city back, really. Kind of disgusting out there at times.
If Bass wins, she'd be the first woman to run LA and the second ever black mayor. Why is she going to make a good mayor?
Because she knows the community.
Rick Caruso is my choice.
Famous faces are weighing in. Kim Kardashian and Gwyneth Paltrow are with Caruso. Movie mogul Jeffrey Katzenberg is backing Bass. But even in Hollywood, celebrity endorsements don't decide elections. Remember the way it works out here in California. If nobody gets more than 50% in the first round, there's a second round on General Election Day in November. Looks like it's going to continue to be Bass and Caruso. There are primaries being held in 7 states across the country today. 2 other interesting ones to watch here in California, Anne-Marie, involve the district attorneys of LA and San Francisco. They were elected in recent years on promises of police reform. The soaring crime rates in both cities have constituents thinking it may be time to kick them out a little early. Anne-Marie?
Yeah, but I'm interested in this mayoral race. I think these are 2 really interesting candidates. They both agree on the problems, different ways to solve them. You would think with Rick Caruso, he's a billionaire, developer. Like, isn't this part of the problem when it comes to how expensive it is to live in the city? But let me ask you, can you give us any more information about them? And is one of them more likely than the other to get 50% of the vote?
Well, polling in recent days has shown Congresswoman Bass in the lead, but falling short of the 50% necessary. Caruso only a few points behind her, which shows you that $40 million can buy you almost a mayoral race, or at least a slot in the runoff. He started this contest with about 6% of the vote, and it's, I guess, a testament to the power of advertising on television and streaming that you talk to Angelenos and they now know who this guy is. Even kids know who he is. I was talking to one colleague yesterday who said their kids know Rick Caruso now because he's on TV so much. But your point about him being a billionaire developer and potentially part of the problem is part of the argument against him. Regardless, because of his message to focus on cleaning up the city, dealing with crime in a different way, and kicking out career politicians who perhaps haven't tackled these problems well enough, look, it's a message we've heard before in other cities and at the national level, and it sounds like he's at least going to remain in the mix through November.
So you gave us a list of concerns for Angelenos, but what about gas prices? I know that the factors influencing gas prices aren't domestic necessarily, but it still makes people, mad. So do you think that will play in with this race?
Well, I mean, look, because it factors into rising costs overall and because concerns about housing prices is a big topic of conversation in this race, as it has been in other big city mayoral races, it's obviously a problem. There's just very little a mayor can do on their own to adjust gas prices. And so it, like many other issues of common concern to Americans, are definitely on the minds of voters out here today.
Ed, thank you very much.
Take care.
Well, Abbott Nutrition's baby formula plant in Michigan has reopened months after a contamination recall forced a shutdown, but parents and caretakers are still feeling the pinch, as it could be weeks before the shelves are actually stocked again. Former FDA Associate Commissioner Peter Pitts is here to talk a little bit more about this current situation. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, we've got all these sort of shipments coming in of formula from other countries, but much of this is specialized formula. It's going directly to medical facilities, so that's why we haven't seen a shift on the shelves yet. In fact, when we talk about, shortages and out of stock rates, I think there's 74% nationally this week. Why weren't other companies able to make up for the shortage? You would think this would be a total windfall for them, and they still couldn't really do it.
Well, when FDA shut down the Abbott Sturgis, Michigan facility in February, the first thing it did was reach out to the other manufacturers of baby formula to ask them to ramp up production. But you can't just flip the switch and go from 10 to 11 in a day or even a month. The good news is that those other companies made up about 30% of the Abbott shortfall, but not nearly enough. And I guess the bigger issue is, once the plant was closed, not enough was done to let pediatricians and certainly parents know what was happening so they could be prepared, even though they might not like what they heard. Being honest with the public, being truthful and transparent certainly builds faith in the person giving the message. And that was a missed opportunity for the government and certainly for the FDA.
So, the plant was closed for so long, and then it kind of seemed like as soon as this became a national story and it was making headlines, suddenly they were able to ramp things up and get the plant back open. How are parents supposed to feel secure that it was checked properly and that it is a safe plant now?
Well, the FDA has been working with Abbott since February to remediate all the problems, and there were a lot of them. And I am completely convinced that once the FDA gives the thumbs up and allows that plant to start, that plant is safe and ready to go back online. No question about it. The problem is that the president said last week that he didn't think anybody could have predicted that closing the Abbott plant would have caused a shortage, which is exactly contrary to what the FDA commissioner said the week before that in front of Congress. So there's a lack of, I think, coordination inside the administration relative to how to speak to the American public and actually what's actually even going on. The good news is the FDA has its arms clearly on the steering wheel, and we're heading in the right direction.
So that's my next question is really, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? Clearly, a huge part of the problem is there are not enough formula manufacturers. That's not something you change in a couple of weeks. So how do we ensure we don't see a repeat of this?
Baby formula is a low margin, high volume business, and that basically means you have a few large manufacturers. Clearly, I think we need to change our views on bringing baby formula in on a regular basis from overseas. That's not a volume play, but it certainly is a safety valve that we need to consider and very seriously. But more importantly, there are other products across the FDA portfolio, both food and medical products, that similarly are consolidated and very important, like IV tubing, like contrast agents for MRIs, that are also manufactured by a few companies. And we have to figure out what those products are and put plans in place so we don't deal with these things on a regular ad hoc basis.
All right, Peter, you've been very informative. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We are going to take a quick break. Before we do, let's leave you with some late night laughs from our friend James Corden, who shared Apple's newest features with the audience on last night's show.
Apple announced today that a bunch of new software features will be coming soon, including the ability to edit or delete messages sent in its Messages app. So from now on, whenever you send an embarrassing text, it's going to be a race between you hitting the edit button and them taking a screenshot. iPhone users will be able to unsend embarrassing texts. There's 3 settings. You can unsend it immediately, within the next 5 minutes, or when you sober up. You can edit your text after you send it. Finally, an end to telling people to go duck yourself.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
It's gonna be big!
The metaverse, the virtual world that's become a cryptocurrency casino.
It's like buying property on Mars. Do they get an actual picture of this? No, it's a digital copy. Why would they pay for that?
Making millionaires almost overnight.
We made more than $1 million in crypto last year. I have no idea how much money I have made over the past year. That's like, wow!
Big rewards.
There's gold in them, there hills, as they say.
Bigger risks.
The market's down, but it's gonna bounce back. It's crypto.
Is it a gold rush or fool's gold?
It's our metaverse, our story. Peace out, y'all.
An original documentary from CBS Reports. Stream now.
I'm Nora O'Donnell in our nation's capital. We're here at the White House with the President of the United States.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We've never done an interview like this before.
That's correct.
Tonight, a congressional investigation sparked by reporting from CBS News. What's your message to consumers? They need help now. Tell him I feel it.
The CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell from Washington, D.C. on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
We will witness yet another moment in history.
This week on 60 Minutes,
That's incredible.
The 60 Minutes.
60 Minutes, 60 Minutes.
Are you ready for some tough questions?
Let me ask you this.
You know how this sounds.
What's your response to that?
60 Minutes Sundays on CBS.
The threat of severe weather and dangerous tornadoes is expected to last.
Let's get the forecast from our partners at the Weather Channel.
Here we are in our virtual view.
Now 6 feet of water, imagine that. Cars that can act like battering rams.
These hyper-realistic simulations show you what the weather will look and feel like before it happens.
This is our virtual view, what it actually looks like. Those are some of the best graphics I've seen.
Spare no expense, Gail.
We experience the weather in a whole new way.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy.
And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun. But wait,
There's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
innovative, and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
We have an inspiring story that started with a strange act of kindness.
We found it.
You're kidding me!
We share stories that lift you up and brighten your day.
The Uplift. Stream on the free CBS News app.
Well, the time now is 7:50, and this is a live look at New York's Times Square, home of CBS Mornings. Dana Jacobson is standing by with a preview of the show. Dana, good morning.
Good morning, Anne-Marie. Ahead on CBS Mornings, more than 15 million students nationwide have been chronically absent since the pandemic. Meg Oliver visits one school district that's going above and beyond to keep kids engaged in school. Also, we will talk with NBA Hall of Famer Grant Hill about his new autobiography, Game, and his love of basketball. He describes his journey from shy kid to star player. And only on CBS Mornings, Oprah Winfrey shares the latest pick for her book club. The author will join us live in studio. We will see you at 8.
See you at 8, Dana. So gas isn't the only thing getting more expensive as pandemic pricing comes to a close. Rents are rising nationwide. According to Rent.com, people in at least 5 cities are paying $1,000 more in rent than they were a year ago. So here to explain more about how we got here is Senior Managing Editor at Rent.com, Brian Carberry. Brian, thanks for joining us. Listen, you know, the Fed raised interest rates a bit, but before that, interest rates were really low. And usually one of the side effects is that rent's low as well. But after the pandemic started to lift, that didn't happen. So how did we get here?
Yeah, good morning. You're right. Really, interest rates were very low, but rents were kind of going in the opposite direction, at least right now. Excuse me. So really what we were seeing during the pandemic was rent prices were relatively flat, really much everywhere across the country. It really wasn't until the end of this past summer that rent prices really started to take off to see some of these double-digit increases that we've been seeing nationwide. Right now, we're seeing about a 26% increase for 1 and 2 bedroom apartments across the country. And there are a lot of markets really everywhere that are seeing increases a lot higher. And you mentioned there are 5 cities right now that we found that rent prices for an average apartment is up $1,000 compared to what people were paying last year. You know, some of these are rent increases of 50% like in Jersey City or 28% in New York City. But then when you look at a place like Austin, Texas, you're seeing rent prices up 81% compared to this time last year, which is a significant increase for a lot of people looking to find a place to live.
Okay, so then why? What are the factors, and are they the same across the country?
You know, there's a lot of different factors in different markets that are kind of contributing to different markets kind of rebounding from the pandemic in different ways. But really, we point to kind of a supply and demand thing. Demand for apartments right now are just through the roof. People are being priced out of buying a home, especially your younger millennials, your older Gen Zers are being forced to return to renting a little bit longer. They're not able to afford that down payment or just don't feel comfortable paying the amount that's being asked right now for new homes. So you're just having a lot more people on that renter market, and inventory levels are so low. Since not a lot of people are buying homes, as many as people as they normally would be, you're just not seeing a lot of available properties, and the properties that are available tend to be the ones that are a little bit more pricey. People are going to try to snatch up these affordable units, and then what's left on the market is just going to bring up that average.
And then, you know, there's a trickle-down effect, because if you normally maybe rent a 2-bedroom, maybe you're going to rent a 1-bedroom, and maybe a bachelor, which means that the people at the bottom who can afford the least are the ones that are probably paying the most in terms of percentage of their income. So what can we do? You know, are there any protections for renters out there that they should be aware of?
You know, certain states and certain areas will have rent stability or rent control measures in place, but that really is city by city. So the best thing you really can do is just understand the laws in your area and really work to figure out what's going to work within your budget. You know, the traditional, rule of thumb, if you will, has always been spend 30% of your pre-tax income on your rent, which is not as realistic right now and kind of where we're seeing rent prices going. So really, people just need to understand what is going to work for them. What's going to work for one renter isn't necessarily going to work to another. You know, try to negotiate with a landlord if possible. Not all landlords are going to play ball right now because of this demand. You know, there's a lot of competition. But one thing that you really could try that we are seeing working in some cases, especially in downtown areas or crowded cities, is if your unit comes with a parking space and parking's at a premium and you don't have a car, you don't need a car, gas prices are through the roof, you may not want to drive, see if you can negotiate that parking spot back, because that's an amenity that a lot of people are looking for, and you may be willing to get a little slight break on your rent to give that amenity back to your landlord that they can then market to someone else.
Oh, that's such a creative and great idea. Brian Carberry, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Time now is 7:55. Here's a look at what is coming up today. President Biden is expected to sign several bills focused on veterans. The White House says that the legislation will expand access to tools, services, and treatments for Americans dealing with medical issues stemming from the country's World War II era nuclear program. And Vice President Kamala Harris is participating in the Summit of the Americas in Los Angeles today. She's expected to deliver remarks promoting women's economic empowerment while attending a CEO roundtable with female entrepreneurs from Central America. Plus, we're keeping a close eye on primary elections underway in California, Iowa, Mississippi, Montana, New Jersey, New Mexico, and South Dakota. So stay with us throughout the day for all the latest developments in key races. And before all of that, we're going to talk with Rhode Island Congressman David Cicilline in our 9 o'clock hour about his latest efforts to pass gun legislation. Hear why the Democratic lawmaker is pushing to raise the age to buy certain firearms to 21. You can stream that in our 9 o'clock hour. If you are heading out the door, take us with you. You can access all of our CBS News national and local streams for free anytime, anywhere on the CBS News app. CBS Mornings is next. I'll see you in an hour.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
It's gonna be big!
The metaverse, the virtual world that's become a cryptocurrency casino.
It's like buying property on Mars.
Do they get an actual picture of this? No, it's a digital copy. Why would they pay for that?
Making millionaires almost overnight.
We made more than $1 million in crypto last year. I have no idea how much money I have made over the past year. That's like, wow!
Big rewards.
There's gold in them, there are hills, as they say.
Bigger risks.
The market's down, but it's gonna bounce back. It's crypto.
Is it a gold rush or fool's gold?
It's our metaverse, our story. Peace out, y'all.
An original documentary from CBS Reports. Stream now.
I'm Nora O'Donnell in our nation's capital. We're here at the White House with the President of the United States.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We've never done an interview like this before.
That's correct.
Tonight, a congressional investigation sparked by reporting from CBS News. What's your message to consumers? They need help now. Tell him I feel it.
The CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell from Washington, D.C. on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
We will witness yet another moment in history.
This week on 60 Minutes, that.
That's incredible.
The 60 Minutes.
60 minutes, 60 minutes.
Are you ready for some tough questions?
Let me ask you this.
You know how this sounds.
What's your response to that?
60 Minutes Sundays on CBS.
The threat of severe weather and dangerous tornadoes is expected to last.
Let's get the forecast from our partners at the Weather Channel.
Here we are in our virtual view.
Now 6 feet of water, imagine that. Cars that can act like battering rams.
These hyper-realistic simulations show you what the weather will look and feel like before it happens.
This is our virtual view, what it actually looks like. Those are some of the best graphics I've seen.
Spare no expense, Gail.
We experience the weather in a whole new way.
Go to the ends of the earth
Right now.
We got something crazy.
and reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun. But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
innovative, and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go.